Hello to peeps from all around the world and welcome to the Impact 2.0 show. Now this show is all about showcasing some uber-tastic purpose-led leaders from around the globe who are making an impact in their own way. You'll learn lessons in entrepreneurship, marketing, leadership, personal development and more. But most importantly, with each episode, you'd walk away with a practical challenge that you can implement within the next 48 hours. Now, my today's guest, Daizy Maan, is passionate about young people shaping the future, social entrepreneurship, and women in leadership. Currently, she's working on, in her own words, being the highest version of myself. So being kinder, more content, and staying in a state of curiosity about my inner and outer world. She's also the program manager for Deakin University's entrepreneurship initiative, Spark Deakin, which supports founders at all stages of their journey through an accelerator program and mentorship. Her current projects also include Digital Job Accelerator to help women in India and Punjab get jobs online, as well as Australian South Asian Centre and a physical healing place for South Asian women in Melbourne. So, will you please put your virtual hands together to welcome my fantabulous guest, Daizy Maan. All right, Daizy Maan, welcome to the Impact 2.0 show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. It's 11 o'clock at night here, but I am thrilled to be part of it.
I'm so grateful, and I know it's very late in Australia, so I'm so grateful for you to be able to make this and make this happen. So let's get going. I don't want to keep you up very late. So let's start with our quick fire round, and it goes by me asking you questions and you firing back answers very quickly, and then we'll deep dive into our conversation.
All right.
So here we go. Question number 1. How would your parents describe what you do for a living?
They don't understand that my job isn't a traditional job. So my mum always says she works at a university, but I don't know what she does. They say she does. They probably say she does marketing, but it's not what I do.
I mean, that's close because the other day I had Mariam on live, and she was like the answer would be disappointment. Mum would say not married yet. Not married. So, okay, the Asian people listening or watching this, they would so be able to get this.
Yeah. So no matter what you achieve, she's not married yet.
Yeah, not married yet. Yeah, that's usually the first question asked by the aunties. Anyway, let's move on to the second question. What's your go-to order at your favorite hometown restaurant?
I don't have a go-to order because I like trying new things all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't go to the same places. I like exploring. I never stick to kind of what I like. So in general, I liked a lot of Thai food because I used to live in Thailand. I used to volunteer there. But yeah, I try a lot of different places and new dishes very often. I'm vegetarian though, so as creative as I can get within that limitation.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And what's the best advice you've ever been given?
I was actually at this event with I think the CEO of ANZ Bank, Elliot, I forget his surname, or Steve, I forget his full name, but CEO of one of the major banks, he spoke. And he said something that always stuck with me, which was that don't follow companies, follow people, in the sense that we get distracted with big brands and to work with big brands. But the reality is, you're going to be working with and for someone, and so you should really pick someone that you respect, that respects you, that you can learn off, that you can grow with, and that has your back, because life's too short to work around people that don't treat you well. I know not everyone has the privilege to choose, but often, especially young people, we really underestimate what we bring to the table, and often we let people treat us poorly because we feel like they're superior to us. So I felt like you just said, that follow people, not organizations. Too many people know all the companies they'd like to work at. Too few people know a single name of a leader at the company that they want to work with. Not the necessarily CEO, because it's not like at big companies you're going to work with them, but just the leader of the manager they're going to work with. I'm always surprised when people take a job and they haven't even really asked a lot of questions about their immediate team they're working with, because that's what defines your entire experience. So I thought that was really good advice, to follow people, not companies. Yeah.
Awesome. What's the best decision you've ever made?
But I'll be honest, for me, it was I have traveled a lot, but I never traveled like in a traditional sense. So I didn't travel just for a holiday. At 17, I went on exchange to Spain for 5 months, and I had to learn Spanish fluently because I was in a little village there, which is all unexpected. I thought I'd be in a city. And then at 19, I moved to Thailand to help mainly actually Pakistani refugees as part of a program with Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. I learned a lot. I thought that working in the human rights sector was my dream job. I learned that I actually liked micro entrepreneurship, and I wouldn't have known that had I not have gone there. And then at 21, I went to Tanzania. And I stayed there for 2.5 months volunteering for a girl called Krupa Patel, who was a young entrepreneur who built one of East Africa's largest social impact hubs. She'd never been to university. So I think those 3 experiences of going abroad with intention to volunteer or to intern, they broadened my perspective. They increased my resilience so much. You know, it wasn't all rosy and pretty. It was hard. I cried myself to sleep sometimes, but I think it gave me a lot of resilience, a lot of perspective of how different people live. And everywhere I went for internships and volunteering, I stayed long enough to like try and pick up the local language, learn how the locals live. And I always traveled like the locals and spent my time like the locals. So it really helped me get that perspective and having a nuanced perspective of how different people in the world live.
Oh, awesome. I'm sure youngsters listening to this could get, some real bite-sized.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like, my parents were against all that. They didn't say, here's my blessings and go. They said, don't you dare. They said, single woman traveling, no. My mum was like, no, you need to finish school, then you need to get your degree, and then you need to get a job, and then you need to get a husband, and then you can do what you want. And I was like, I don't think so.
Yeah, those are brown parent issues. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the worst decision you've ever made then?
Oh God, what's appropriate to tell you live? Am I gonna ruin my future potential political career? I'm always so careful. I wish I had the audacity of Mariam. I think she shares a lot, and that's why I always point people to her direction. All right, this is the worst decision I've made. Did you?
Yeah. I mean, anything you don't mind sharing?
Okay, I'll be honest. I think I've wasted a lot of time with boys that, dating, that I probably, especially emotionally investing, giving a lot. And I just thought, I'll be honest, none of it's wasted time, because even if you learn to discern what's a better way to spend your time, even if it comes from any investment in your life, whether it's relationships or dating, I find even if the only thing you learned was how to better discern your next investment, you've learned something. So I don't want to say it was the worst decision, but I think I spent a lot of time thinking about boys because I thought it was important to find a soulmate, to have a relationship. So I think I've kind of let go of that notion. It's not like I've given up and it's sad. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm very content, but I'm no longer chasing it in a partner. Like, I've just realized it's my own, I've got to fill my own cup, and then things just happen naturally. And I think I was looking for what I thought was love, but was really attachment and expectations and romantic ideas of love that were fed to me that weren't really mine as I navigated that. So that's probably, not like the worst, but I could have made better decisions in that regard. I've wasted a fair bit of time.
Couldn't we all? All right, awesome, Daisy. Now let's get this show rolling. So let's get into the next segment which is called Meat and Potatoes. Now, unfortunately, it has nothing to do with food, but everything to do with our guests' work and their journey up until now. Now, Daisy, I want you to imagine I'm holding a pair of boxing gloves, which I'm going to pass on to you virtually through the screen. Could you take these boxing gloves and smash for me, not my face, please, but some kind of entrepreneurial or advocacy myth, a bogus strategy, a misconception, and set the record straight once and for all?
I think it's a pretty obvious one, but I'm always shocked that people still believe it, that you can't share your ideas with people. So people come to me, I have hundreds of students I mentor at my role at Deakin University for startups, and they come to me and they say, I've got this idea, but sign an NDA or do this. And I'm sitting there thinking, the value of your idea lies in execution, not in having an idea. The same with books. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to write a book, but how many do, right? So no one's going to take your book idea and execute it. And even if they did, if they execute it better than you, that's what they deserve to do. Don't take ideas to the grave with you. You know, I share ideas all the time, and if someone does the same thing as me, I'm like, great. You know, as long as they're not ripping off everything in the brand, and stealing your idea can be confused sometimes. As long as they're not copy pasting exactly everything, the best, you gotta practice executing it. I think protecting your ideas like in that way, especially things that are so easily replicable these days. It's like, no, your effort into execution is really what counts. I want to bust that myth that you can't share your ideas. I always share my ideas before they're even ready. Obviously buy your domain name, you know, and do that kind of stuff. But you can share your ideas before you're ready and find collaborators, find feedback, and not be so precious about them, because nobody's going to steal your I want to say dumb idea, but nobody's going to steal your idea. It's really, the value lies in execution.
And not only steal your idea, because it's like you said, it's all about execution, and how many people are able to execute, right? Even if they
very few.
Exactly. So you're right, absolutely right. That you shouldn't shy away from sharing ideas, because it's all about execution. If you're able
and not be so
execute,
and not be so precious about them. Like, you're going to have many ideas. Most successful entrepreneurs have had several ideas before they landed on the one that worked. So you're going to have lots of them. So let them come, and the ideas have a life of their own. Let them be born into the world. Don't be precious. We know it's your baby, but you know, you don't want anyone to call your baby ugly. You don't want anyone to call your idea or your business ugly, but you need to share it with the world. And you know, that's how the baby's going to toughen up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how sometimes you find the greatest potential partners, when you share your ideas and you build your tribe, right? That's the only way.
Exactly.
When you share your ideas, you start building your own following, and you attract the right partners and right customers. Alrighty. So, I mean, before we deep dive into the projects you're involved with, I'm sure our audience would like to know a little bit more about who Daizy Maan is, and how did you get to the place where you are right now? Was it an easy ride? What got you here?
So simple. I just did nothing. I just sat around. No, I'm kidding. What do I do? So, how did I get involved in entrepreneurship? I guess I'll start with a story. I never thought I'd be involved in an entrepreneurial space at all. My mom was a teacher, my dad was an engineer, no one in my family's in business. And technically only now am I starting my business journey. I was mainly involved in running entrepreneurship programs for the university at Deakin, and we're quite a large university. We have about 60,000 students and about 250,000 alumni. It's one of the youngest universities in Australia, in terms of what young means in university age, 40 odd years. But yeah, it's quite a big university. I never thought I'd work for a university. I never thought I'd work in entrepreneurship. One, I had some preconceived ideas. I thought everyone who works at a university was an academic. I am very far from an academic. I love learning, but I'm not necessarily in the academic way. And the second thing was, I never thought I'd be in entrepreneurship, because I'll be honest, if I have to confess, I always thought entrepreneurship had to do with greed and money. And I was like, no. From a younger age, I was like, I want to make a difference in the world. Right? So I think what changed that was when I was 19 and I was in Thailand working with refugees, and I was doing legal aid work, and that was like my dream job at the time was the United Nations. I thought that's the best way to help people, right? I thought at the time, so I thought. And as I did this legal work day in, day out, I started to realize, it was a lot of paperwork, and I thrive talking to people. I thrive, working in the community. So it wasn't really for me. But I did realize that, one day the International Labour Organization came in and they said, we have this curriculum that we want to teach to the Tamil Sri Lankan women about entrepreneurship. And it's called a Women's Empowerment Program. And I was like, and they said, who wants to help edit the curriculum? I look left, I look right, no one really put their hand up. And I was like, I'll do it. Didn't know how, didn't know what I was doing, but I was always like, oh, well, if no one else is doing it, what about me, So, and that was where it started. And I learned, I didn't know not a lot, but I learned that how micro entrepreneurship can really help people with their sense of agency. And once these women learned entrepreneurship, I observed how it was so much more than they couldn't get a job. They weren't even legally recognized as sort of people there. And so it was really hard for them, Many of them had turned to begging and living on the streets and prostitution. So they had a really hard life. They had small children, more widows in this Tamil group. And so when we taught them basic entrepreneurial skills, cash flow, we linked them up with a market of expats to give their beautiful products to that they handmade. I noticed that they regained a sense of agency, a sense of I'm worthy, a sense of I can earn an income, I have a place in society, I count for something, And then what they did, Yeah, and what they did with the income, they put their kids into Thai schools, they integrated into society, they got health insurance, they became members of society with dignity. And so then for me, entrepreneurship became more about restoring dignity. It's not just about, yeah, get rich and make money. I've never really been too inclined for that, but it became about how do I uplift people using this vehicle? Because at the end of the day, money is just, it's one avenue, it's one currency. There are other currencies as well.
So
That's what led me to be interested in entrepreneurship, and that's why now for a decade I've been spearheading entrepreneurship programs for the university, helping young people understand how to be entrepreneurs.
And that's with the Staff Deacon program. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so the Spark Deacon for Deakin University, and then I also have my own program called Australian Digital Job Accelerator, which I just founded, and we're doing a pilot, and that's focused on young people and women across Australia, India, and we're opening it up sort of broader for the next round. But we focus on teaching young people how to become freelancers because the economy has changed so much, and people don't realize that the future of work is so different. Between now and last year, 200,000 freelance jobs have been added to one site, freelancer.com. Yet people are still looking for jobs in the traditional way. It's really going to be hard to get a normal job. And what even is security and stability? You know, what has COVID taught us about security and stability? It's an illusion. You create your own as much as you can.
You create your own.
So I equip women with the skills and young people with the skills to become freelancers. And my main metrics are twofold: how supported they feel during my program, and two, how we're able to increase their monthly income should they follow all of the program sort of curriculum I've designed.
Awesome. So tell me, what drives you to start these programs to help these youngsters? What's driving you? What's the motivation behind it?
I think I've seen a lot of injustice in the world, and I think I've also seen a lot of pain and suffering. And for me, it's always about, and I always have like an intersectional lens. And you know, I never knew what the word intersectional meant when I went to these feminism events, but I was like, oh, I've been doing that for a long time. You know, I always look at a lens of identity as well as like, you know, when I'm in a room full of people, you know, I was on a board of directors of a publicly listed company in Australia, and I was the youngest in the room, the average age probably 65, and all white and male, and one other female. And I just thought, there's no representation here. I think we can have as many policies in place to have more youth empowerment, to have more women, of color and diversity. But the reality is, without representation, meaning unless you give them a seat at the table, we're not going to get far, because it involves power and it involves giving up power. So I think for me, what drives me is I've seen a lot of injustice. And I also think that Layla Jana, who was one of my main role models, and she created thousands of jobs for people in Kenya, and she passed away this year. And she was an amazing woman. And she always said, talent is equally distributed, like across the world, but opportunity is not. Meaning, like, it breaks my heart to think there's a 26-year-old girl just like me in a village in India who, we are no different. She's probably more hardworking than I am, right? But she may have 4 kids by now. She may have been forced to get married as a child, you know? It breaks my heart to think the only difference between us is distance. And so for me, it's like, how do I, even with my Aja course, 50% of all seats are for women in India and Pakistan, because that's, you know, where I want to support women as well. So I always think of when I create these opportunities and ways to empower people, I then put a lens of who needs it most and who doesn't have access to it. Yeah.
Awesome. And I know you just briefly mentioned that you know, you started traveling from a very young age, and this whole journey taught you a lot. And I read that you spent a month in an ashram in Himalaya. What's the story behind it, and what did you come away with, most importantly, from that experience?
Everything. So that was 8 years ago, but I have been spending almost every year, a whole month, every December I do that. So this is one of the first years I won't be going there. It's been 8 years since when I first went when I was 19. I'm actually currently writing a book about the experience as well.
Awesome.
For me, what I learned is I went there when I was 19, and I was not at a very good place in my life for various reasons. I'd hit quite a low point, and I was, you know, a GP had said, you've got mild depression, why don't you take antidepressants? And I was like, and I don't, you know, each to their own. If you take medication, that's up to you. But I'd seen half my family take medication, and I'd never really I never really seen them thrive, maybe survive, sure, but not thrive. And I was like, I want to thrive. I don't want to survive, you know? And so I really struggled with this phase of being quite miserable. And, you know, I tried going to therapy, tried all these things, and they weren't really working for me. Maybe I didn't stick them out long enough. I don't know. And then I found myself like hitchhiking in India and went to this ashram. And I didn't tell my parents, so they would have, I kind of vaguely told them, but I kind of just said, I'm bye, I'm leaving, to my dad, who was reading the newspaper and didn't even ask me. Then my mum's like, where's Daizy gone? And then I went to this ashram. I didn't even know what an ashram was. And I'm not very religious. I was a Richard Dawkins loving atheist. But, you know, I went there and there were like Hindus from India, Muslims from Iran, there were Christians from Russia, and there were people from all over the world. And so they all came, these less religious, more spiritual. And I think the biggest thing I took away from it is to learn that contentment comes from within. Nothing outside is going to make me content. That's internal. Everything else is just extra. So we're on this. So now it's like I put on my hat of being a program manager. I put on my hat of being an entrepreneur. I put on my hat of being someone. But I am whole and I am complete without all of that, regardless. So it always means my state of being is quite joyful. Not obviously there's highs and lows. I'm not Buddha, but like I've now learned to experience those states of being that are joyful and that come from a place of love. And I've learned not to let my mind run the show, you know, be anxious or depressed or, you know, not tied to any of these identities. When I'm feeling low, it's going to pass. You know, it always passes, because my truth is something deeper and is something more great. You know, whether you call it God or the universe or infinite love or something, or the life force or just the human spirit. I feel like it's so profound when you really tap into what you are capable of. And often we're told to live a very mediocre life compared to what we can live. And probably the biggest thing I took away from that was to meditate and to learn about love and unconditional love for myself and others. And to be really feel the wholeness of life without feeling incomplete.
So, I mean, what one advice could you give to somebody else, maybe other youngsters or other people who find themselves in this situation, you know, very down and low? And so what is one thing that you could, you know, give to them that maybe could, you know, bring a smile to their face, if nothing else, listening to this?
I think the first thing that I have to say is you're exactly where you need to be right now. You know, at this point in time, at this point in your life, you're exactly where you need to be. And that's important because we all are struggling with so many mental health issues, especially coming out of COVID. People are anxious, people are depressed, people feel like they've been set back. We haven't seen friends. You know, Melbourne's just come out of 6 months of lockdown. People have missed their family, long distance relationships have fallen apart, you know. So I think it's just remembering you're exactly where you need to be. Also, you are capable of amazing, incredible things. And to have faith, don't suck into the cynicism. There's so much cynicism in this world right now, of judging, of finding critique in everything. But, you know, look for the good in things. When people pitch new ideas to me, I don't look for the ways it can fall apart. I look for, and how can I make this better? And how can I offer you something that'll help you grow? Rather than, oh, let me pull this apart or let me criticize this. You know, with social media and everything, it's so toxic. And I can see why it contributes and why we're all depressed and anxious and medicated, because it's hard. So I say you're exactly where you need to be and you're really capable of incredible things, and don't stop trying, because that's kind of what really counts. So even if it's taking a very small step towards maybe setting up your business, setting up a social enterprise, or even looking for that dream job, don't give up and don't settle for what society tells you is normal. Because normal is what? Normal is what you decide.
Exactly.
The more you look externally for what is normal, the less satisfied you'll find yourself. It'll be an illusion of satisfaction, I think.
Awesome. I love that advice. Have faith that you're capable enough to do what you want to do. I love that. Okay, I know that you work with a lot of startups. What is the one thing that working with startups did for you, or one of the startups that you didn't expect to happen as a result, maybe? Maybe an experience.
I think a lot of Yeah, good and bad. I think if I start with bad and then good, a lot of startups fall apart because of conflicts between founders. And also, I think a lot of startups fall apart not because the idea is bad, not because the business isn't viable, but it's to do with the founders' faith in themselves, their ability to believe in themselves. And I think, especially at universities, people often overlook this mental strength and resilience as a key factor in business success. You know, you can learn about accounting, you can learn about finance, you can learn all these skills, but unless you really believe in yourself with true, strong conviction, you're not going to go far. Because if you continue to look at the external world for validation, you'll be fragile. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to be told no 1,000 times. So you have to learn to get back up and keep going. So I think what I learned is, I used to think when I came into this, oh, it's about the business idea, it's about the problem, the solution, the market size, you know, all these things we assess on when we do pitches. And what it's really about is your resilience and persistence, you know? Your idea will evolve over time. Your idea is not great right now, but if you've got an ability to adapt, to evolve, if you're hungry, you will change. You know, you will fall in love with the problem and your solution will change, you know? You say, you know, this is the problem I want to tackle, hunger, you know? And then your startup might be something, and then you'll find, okay, that's not working. Then you'll say something else, and you'll try something else. But it's got to be this drive for you to solve that problem. Those are my favorite entrepreneurs to work with. And I guess when I started out, I thought that it was all about, oh, does the business make sense on paper? Does the budgets make sense? Does all this make sense? And you're like, look, that might work for 5% of businesses, but I'm not, those are usually quite boring businesses that I'm not in, like really traditional industries that are really calculated. But startups have taught me that it's really about your belief in yourself, but also persistence and resilience.
In the problem that they're trying to solve.
To keep going, to bounce back. The last thing, sorry, I should add is like people skills are so key. I have seen very smart founders, technically very capable developers with ideas come to me and their ideas not get off the ground because it's not about that. Because people skills meaning your ability to build relationships, what we call networking, your ability to sales and marketing, you know, it's so important. Your ability to strike up partnerships and to see collaborations, and what does that look like to expand your business, you know? These are huge. I've seen really technically smart people come who I thought, oh, your idea is going to go off, you know, you're going to win every prize, and you do win every pitch prize because they like to see novelty. But I don't see those ideas go off sometimes because the person behind it doesn't realize how important like sales, marketing, people skills are. Forming the right partnerships, especially at an early stage, isn't it, as a startup? And I've seen some very mediocre ideas take off because the founders got conviction, persistence, resilience, and they're really good at networking and building relationships. So, I mean, what do you wish you had known when you started out, Daizy? To enjoy the journey. I was a bit too competitive and serious, and I used to take part in these like hackathons and competitions, and I look back, I'm like, oh God, like I was so competitive. I was like, I want to win. But also, I think along that way, I was so focused and narrow-minded about winning that I forget that I need to bring people along the journey with me. And also, I'm less focused on winning, but I also move at a very fast speed, which is something startups have already taught me, is to move very fast, but then I have to remember to bring people along on the journey with me, right? To explain things and things like that. So I think that's one thing I've definitely, at the beginning, I wish I knew that the journey really matters and that what's it all for? We can get so caught up in these metrics and KPIs, and what's it all for if you're stressed out, anxious, you know, feeling unsuccessful, feeling like a failure. Obviously it's not every day is not going to be happy and joyful. You're going to have setbacks, and I feel like in some ways entrepreneurship is a huge spiritual journey as well. Like it teaches you so much. If you stick through it, teaches you so much about the world, people, your own breaking point, because it tests every element of you. There's nowhere to hide when you're an entrepreneur. You know, you can't hide behind nice presentations. You know, in big companies, you can often hide behind things. You cannot as an entrepreneur. You know, so there's nothing to hide behind. So you have to show up and you have to take risks, and you will get rewarded, and sometimes you will fail miserably, but it's okay.
But it's okay. Yeah. I mean, and this advice goes true for anything in life, not just like in business or entrepreneurship, in life with partnerships. As a parent, I can say that, in my early years of parenthood, I didn't have that mentality, and it was hard. But as soon as I realized that what's important is to enjoy this journey. And like you said, there would be, good days, bad days. But if you have that mindset of, that this is all a journey, and an experience is what counts, not the destination, not what's going to happen in 18 years or 20 years time, because who knows, where we'll be at that time, or where the kids will be, or where your business would be.
Yeah, or the world will be at this rate.
At this rate, yes. All right, so I wanted to talk about, there's another project you're involved with, Bold Punjab, right? So what's the story behind it? What does it do? Who does it help?
That's evolved quite a lot since I started that about a year ago. And I originally started because my background, my family's from Punjab. I was born and raised in Australia. But I looked across the world and I noticed like a lot of Punjabi people and Indian people more broadly were quite successful. Like if you look at Canada, they have one of the largest number of like Sikh MPs in the world, more than India, I think, right? And then you look to the Europe as well, the Indian diaspora is quite successful. And in Australia, it's getting there too, in UK definitely, right? And then so you see these successful Indian people, and then and a lot of them are Punjabi as well, but it's not just about all Punjab. And then I went to India, and I also looked, there was a lack of young people and a lack of young women in this space entirely, especially in India, in Punjab. So I set up Bold Punjab originally to empower and to create a community of women, young women, across the world who are South Asian more broadly, with a focus on getting behind women in Punjab and in India, and in Punjab including extended Pakistan as well. Because who created boundaries, who created borders, won't go down that rabbit hole. But I just realized that there's so much potential there, and as I read more and more, I became quite shocked. Like, Punjab is a state where opium abuse is at its highest right now. It's, our young men and women, young men especially, taking drugs. Abuse in Haryana and Punjab, female feticide is at the highest in the entire country. Killing, baby girls before they're born and even after they're born. And we have so many deep-rooted problems. And I just thought, why isn't anyone talking about this? Like, on one end, I'm seeing these very incredibly successful Punjabis and Indians and South Asians. And on one end, I'm just seeing what I call deep poverty, deep poverty, and also like poverty of mind and spirits and everything, and there's no jobs and there's no opportunity. And I was just like, what are we going to do for these women? Like, because I could have been one of them, right? And the answer isn't just migration. We can't just keep saying, oh, you get to go to Australia and you get to make it. That's not even the case all the time, People struggle when they come here a lot. Some people think they're just going to leave and they're going to come here, everything's going to be good. No, there's also a lot of struggle. So it's like the Bold Punjab was set up to serve them. So we've organised a few major events. The most recent one was a Progressive Punjab, where again I organised a panel. We had over about 190 people tune in, and the panel were all young, and we had 2 women on the panel and 2 young men, and they were great. And I just moderated. I took a back seat and moderated, and there were young leaders in Punjab doing interesting things, and that's important because when I went there, I never saw that. I went to all these startup events where everyone was over 50, everyone was male, and I'll be honest, very rarely were they inspiring in any way. And so where are the young people at that are, and India in general is a country with 600 million young people.
Where are they at?
I can't even fathom that, right? So why are they not represented? Why? So I think that's where Bold Punjab kind of steps in to create campaigns and events and spaces where young people can be heard, especially young women, where they can be more entrepreneurial, and how the diaspora, like us, people who have left, or even people across India who have the ability can come back and support them and give them a voice, and, help them get further ahead.
Awesome. So does the program include educating and empowering them with the right skills so that they could be independent?
It's evolved quite a bit. So at the moment, the program is, obviously we do a series of events where we firstly, because when I went there originally, we wanted to an accelerator, and then I went there, it's not ready for an accelerator. When I went there, like an accelerator, you need a certain baseline of talent and skills and understanding of entrepreneurship. That I spent 2 months in India this year to see what the ground situation was, even though I'm born here, so I wanted to make sure I was talking to locals. And I realized an accelerator was not the right fit back then or there. But I guess like a typical startup accelerator, I mean, there's different types of accelerators. And so now what we do is I've started the Australian Digital Job Accelerator, and that was originally a pivot from something that we incubated within Bold Punjab. So that was originally a mentoring program that we started designing like 6 months ago.
Right.
And then I realized a mentoring program won't work, because how many people actually commit to a mentoring program? How many people see it through? How many people are willing to pay for mentoring, right? And by that, I mean, how many people are willing to invest in it wholeheartedly?
Yeah.
And to make use of mentoring requires you to understand a nuanced understanding of relationships, which a lot of people don't have. So what we do now is, I guess, the Australian Digital Job Accelerator has been spun out as its own thing, but that was incubated within Bold Punjab, and a lot of the women doing it. That's going to be a partner with Bold Punjab. Like, we will always have scholarship places for women through Bold Punjab. That's one thing, and that's a 90-day program where we teach people how to become freelancers and make money online through digital work, not a get rich quick scheme, but an actual, where the world's going and how you make money through task-based work online. So that's one. Two is these events that we put into. They're not just ordinary events. We spend months planning them. We think carefully about our speakers. We think carefully about who we're inviting and who's coming in the room, and carefully post-event to then, introduce people to each other, to broaden that network, to get these leaders from even abroad interested in Punjab again, interested in India again, and in Pakistan, about young people doing amazing things. So that's a big part of what we do as well. And the last thing is we're sort of got a book, launching it like a book club where we read texts by empowered South Asian women as well.
All right. I'm really looking forward to reading your book whenever it comes out, because I'm sure it's going to be a crack.
Get in there. God, right, hard work.
So, I mean, to youngsters listening to or watching this, how do you find time to be involved with so many projects? What's your secret? You've got a job, you're working with so many startups, projects on the side.
I used to, when I was younger, I'm 26 now. When I was younger, I was very impatient. I was like, go. And I still am. And it's a personality trait. I was like, it needed to be done yesterday. So I was always very like fast. I've learned to slow down a little bit. So I don't mind if things don't hit milestones as fast as I thought they would, as long as it's done well. So even with Bold Punjab, like, I took a break from it for 6 months because I thought it was all getting too much for a while. I was dealing with my own challenges. So it's okay to take a break as well. So I do all these things, but it's not like I'm doing them every day. I have dedicated days. So right now my focus is mainly on the Australian Digital Job Accelerator, and on Spark Deacon. And again, my podcast, I haven't made that many episodes at the moment. It's okay, because I didn't start those out to be huge things. I started them out because they would bring me joy, and they still do. So I keep doing this, right? And I don't let go of things when they get hard, but I do let go of them once they stop bringing me joy. If there isn't a deep-rooted, strong enough why. And as I've gotten older, I've realized when I should start projects and when I shouldn't. So I think I can balance it all, because it's not as hard as it sounds, to be honest. It's not. It sounds like a lot. Our missions and our visions are very audacious.
Yeah.
But the reality is, to have an audacious mission, and to have that audacity to dream big, it takes small steps every day.
Yes.
I used to get intimidated. I used to set a grand vision and get intimidated by my own vision, and then feel like a failure because I'm not achieving it. But it's like, a vision is just there to inspire you, and you keep working towards it for your life. It's life work. I used to think, okay, I'm going to be done this within 3 years, and I'm going to achieve this, and this. And I'm like, no, it's bigger than that. This is my life's work. So I'll keep chipping away at it with small steps every day, and I'll keep learning. So I think my only secret, if it's even a secret, is take little, small, baby steps every day. Little things. Set up an Instagram page. Find 3 collaborators. Start your first event. Launch your book. Whatever you're doing, start with one little community event for one person. Even we start to have grand visions, and we forget about. I have grand visions now, but the work is in the small daily steps.
Yeah, and you forget about the small wins, which are so important to celebrate, because without them, we're never going to achieve the big vision. So I think a lot of people, lose that picture, that we have to celebrate our small wins, so that it keeps us going, basically.
It does, yeah. Small wins are huge because I used to forget to celebrate anything that I succeeded in. So I was very ambitious. So like next thing, and then I'd burn out, and then I'd be like, what did I spend the whole year doing? And I look back and I did a bunch of amazing things. And I'm like, oh, I forgot all these things because I was
exactly
catching the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, majority of young women your age are not even doing half the things that you're doing. So you should give yourself a pat on the back already for this.
We do the best with what we know and what we have, and we all have different ways of contributing.
Yeah, absolutely. So Daisy, as you know, this series is called Impact 2.0. Could you share with our viewers and listeners maybe a story or a moment or an encounter that may have touched your heart and changed the course of action for you?
I think I shared one earlier, so I'm trying to think of a different one. The Thailand, the Tamil women really changed my whole career trajectory. I'd not have ever been in entrepreneurship had I not have gone to Thailand for that human rights placement, which was nothing to do with entrepreneurship. So just putting my hand up yes that day to say to that International Labour Organization thing was a huge change. I think one story is I started a club/society at university called Social Enterprise Collective. And I had no idea where it was going to take me when I started it. And the job I have now is even because of that. Like I was hired after they saw what great results I achieved running a club on a volunteer basis, a society per se, you know? And so in doing that, when I first started, I was just very passionate. I was doing like 20 odd hours a week, maybe 35 sometimes, or, you know, I would prioritize this over everything. And it was just, people were like, it's just a club or society. But I was like, no, we're going to change lives and all this stuff. And we did actually. If I stop underestimating myself, we changed a lot of lives. We raised money that helped 400 people access clean water in developing countries through a collaboration with Thank You Water.
That's not a small thing. Yeah.
No, exactly. When I was only like 21, so we did a lot of stuff. But I think I never expected that just through running a club society with like nothing but a $2,000 annual budget, which was given to me by the student union, that I could make that much of a change. And that by dreaming big, bringing people together and doing this hard work, that I could actually get the results we got in terms of creating a movement. Even though the club, we shut that down eventually, I wasn't able to make it sustainable. It served its purpose, and the people that were involved in it at the time, I feel like were really transformed.
Awesome. I mean, I know we're coming up towards the end of this uber-tastic chat. So before I ask you to share a challenge with our listeners, could you share something with our audience, maybe about yourself or the projects you're working on, you're anticipating, or you're excited about that I didn't know enough about to ask you?
I talked a bit. I'm most excited at the moment about the Australian Digital Job Accelerator because it's my new, and I've put everything I know into it, around networking, how to build relationships, how to use LinkedIn effectively. You know, my content on LinkedIn has had about 2 million plus views now, and so I've been experimenting for a while with it. And when I started it, I didn't set out to do that, but I learned over time, right? Yeah. And so I've packaged that up. I've added everything I know on how to do that into this course, and I'm so excited about it. And the 40 women taking part in it now, the results they're getting, we're in like week 5. Just blow me every day. We celebrate their wins, and some of them already landed paid jobs in week 4, and it's like amazing. So I'm really excited about that. The second thing I just want to mention is I'm speaking to you today from a place that I beautifully with love called the Soul House. This is a residence on 1 acre in Melbourne that I've taken a lease over, and we have a number of cottages, and it's a space and programs for women who maybe they're feeling lonely or anxious or depressed or anything. They just want a sisterhood, and they can come here. So we've created that space that they can come visit for a few hours, they can come stay for a few nights. Oh, wow. And I thought I'd do this work later in my life, to be honest. I always thought, at 60 I'll run a place like this where I help young women, and I'm 26 and here I am, and we've had ever since opening up about my story of what I went through and when I was younger and I didn't have the most loving home environment, and that story reached again about 2 million people, and so many people got in touch, and it's been heartbreaking but also heartwarming. The stories, the women that get in touch with me, some of them are just going through a tough time because of just mental health or just just the pressures of life. Others have very, very sad stories of abuse, sexual abuse, torture, like just really things you just don't think go on in Australia, and they do. Spouse visa abuse is huge. So for me, it's amazing to be able to provide them a space to just come and to remind them of their true selves and that they are worthy after they've been spent for so long being told they're worthless. So I think I'm really excited. I really love this. Like, some people are like, how do you spend so much time? Isn't it draining? No, me and these girls laugh so much. We have dinners every night. It's like a family I've created here. Like, we have we read to each other every evening. We do meditations almost daily, 7 p.m. You know, and it's just like, I don't feel drained at all. I feel like I am part of the solution. You feel drained when you're there to rescue people. I'm not here to rescue people. I already know they're brilliant, and I think I really enjoy their company and they enjoy mine, and we have a great time here. Like, we laugh, we dance, we have little parties. It's not like a shelter. It's like, you know, it's a fun house. It's a soul house. So
it's a space where they can be themselves.
Exactly. And sometimes it's like
super exciting.
Quite a few women, sometimes it's less, but it's been 6 to 7 weeks, and I'm in love with the work I'm doing here, because it's so gratifying to be able to help people, but also to really enjoy it, to not feel limited myself.
Oh, awesome. I mean, you're doing so much stuff. It's making me feel like, do I do enough? Do I do enough?
We're already enough. You don't need to do more. You're already enough.
I mean, it's great talking to you, and I'm sure people listening to it are going to be so wowed. It's like, wow, you know, they're all going to be questioning themselves, but hopefully it gives them ideas as to how we can, you know, be ourselves and still do things for others, you know, help others along on this journey of success, and not just, you know, it's just not ourselves.
The research shows that Adam Grant's looked into this in a book called Give and Take, and there's a TED talk, because the book is a bit long, but is that people who give more in life are more successful. Entrepreneurial, financially, like, we often think by giving we are losing something. That's not true. Look, unless you make yourself a doormat and you just get used and abused, that's very different. You've got to be able to discern the difference between when you're being used. But really, if you know your self-worth and you're a generous person and you give by simple things, by introducing two people to each other, that's one most generous thing to do that I rarely see anyone do. Like, maybe like I think the way I think Mariam introduced us, and now here we are, right? So like things like this, just finding two people in your network that you think might connect and introducing, that's a huge and generous act to do, but so simple and small. So I think it's like remembering that giving isn't grand gestures of you know, these things. You know, I do this stuff now, but it didn't start like this, you know. It's a huge process in the making. I think giving can be just, if you're further ahead, just meant having a 1 hour call with a junior person, you know, reaching out to a university and saying, can I help young students out? Or reaching out to a high school in a disadvantaged area and saying, can I come and talk to students about leadership? Here's what I'm doing. Or the small things you can do. Or if you really don't know, find an organization you like and go reach out to the founder. And that's what I did when I was 22 and I didn't know what, 21, and I went to Tanzania. I had no idea, but I literally said to Krupa, I was thinking, I'll make your coffee for you. Like, I don't care. You are amazing. You are exactly where I want to be later in life. And she was 25 at the time and I was 21. And so I wanted to surround myself. And the minute she said yes, I booked the next flight to Tanzania. I had like no money left. And my mother was like, don't you dare go to Tanzania. Like, you know, it's not safe. And I was like, bye. And I was gone for 2 months. I put university on hold and everything. So because I found someone who I admired, and I was like, I was a sponge and I wanted to learn everything. That was my generous act as well. But in that act of giving to her, I didn't lose anything. I gained a lot of skills.
Absolutely. I remember this lady from my childhood in Pakistan growing up, and this lady used to live across from us. She was a widow with 4 young kids, and you know, all under the age of 5. And I remember, you know, with the years that she was so generous. They didn't have much, right? But still, every year she would give out. She would sell whatever she had. You know, I remember once she had this last gold bangle left on her arms, and she was ready to sell everything to help others out. And I was thinking, you know, I was young, I was a child, I was thinking, why is she doing that? She doesn't need to do that. She needs other people's help. But, you know, and years later, now I see her her kids are all well educated, they're all doing well, they've got a big house, and it all came back to her, but because she never, she never thought of it that way, that you have to have a certain amount of money, or like you said, it doesn't have to be monetary in every case.
When I was younger, I used to volunteer. My mother used to always say to me, my parents were like, stop, don't do this. You need to take care of yourself first. You need to take care of yourself first. And because we were not well off in any way, we struggled a lot. My parents struggled to pay a single mortgage their whole life. Whereas for me, it was like, I just really enjoyed the stuff I did. So it wasn't even that I was giving and I was like, oh, this is boring. I really liked it. And I would climb my way up in organizations, and I was HR director, volunteer HR director at the age of 18, managing about 100 to 200 volunteers. And I learned a lot in that role. And I didn't even want the role. Someone was like, go for it. I was like, no, that, go for it. I was like, fine, okay. And then I got it and I was like, oh God, I felt like a fraud. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I learned, and I think that's what it's about. Like, enjoy the roles as well in these organizations. Follow the part of you that makes you most curious. And you can also find ways to give and have fun while you're at it.
Absolutely. All right, now, folks, it's that time of the interview for us fellow viewers and listeners. And you may be thinking, what is it? Gossip time, or share the fun pickup lines time, or tell an embarrassing joke time? Unfortunately, we are not that type of a show yet. But what it is time for is, drumroll please, 48-hour challenge time. So Daizy, this is where I ask you to share what is that one thing that our viewers or listeners can do in the next 48 hours to make a small difference to the causes they believe in or values they stand for. What is that one thing they can do in the next 48 hours?
I think it's maybe find like a social enterprise or NGO that you admire, or a person that you admire. And if you don't, look them up on LinkedIn, do a bit of research. And, I reach out to them, add them on LinkedIn, but send them a personalized message and say, hi, so-and-so, I'm this person. These are the skills I have. This is what I'm passionate about. And I'd love to give you X number of hours of my time and make a commitment, because some people just say, I'd love to help, and they're really fluffy, and it doesn't help when you're very fluffy. It's easy. I get a lot of people telling me they want to help, but they're not specific, and then I don't know what to do. And anyway, but like, just say to them, I'd love to help out with this many hours. Here's an example of my work, and here's what I can do. And think through it. Think through what you can do for that organization. It might be set up automations. It might be migrate a database. It might be just data entry. Whatever it is. No work is ever beneath you. I never feel this way. And reach out to them and offer that help to them. And you'll learn something yourself, And you might be scared. You might be thinking, what do I have to offer? You always have something to offer. And make it to them of what you'll do. And then let me know how it goes. And it might be that you reach out to 5 people and only 1 responds, If one doesn't respond, reach out to more.
Tag you and everything. Would you like to leave your social media tags?
Yeah. My social media, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, is Daizy Maan, Daizy and Maan. And let me know if you want to add me on LinkedIn. Just send me a personalized message. Tell me you tuned into this session, this podcast episode, and it's going to be recorded as well. And let me know how you went with the challenge. And I'm more than glad to listen to you and to hear how that went.
Absolutely. And we'll be adding all these links and Daizy's social media links with the description of this on the podcast and on the videos and on the social media posts. So you will exactly who to connect with and how to connect with. And lastly, before I let you go, Daizy, I read your September blog post about advocacy through love, in which you attached an email you sent to an organization who organized a youth summit but failed to pay their young speakers. What was the result of it? Did they ignore you or acknowledge you? What was the result?
No, so they weren't paying young people, and I found out through a Facebook group. And I found out because they asked me to speak, and I said, do you have a speaker fee? But I was probably a bit too old, up to 25, and I said, even if I said I probably can't speak, I can probably find you someone else, another young person, but do you have a speaker fee to reimburse them? Because so many people love giving young people the stage to share their story, but often they don't realize those young people are still struggling financially. Anyway, so I ended up sending what I thought was a nice strategic email, and rather than an angry email, to let them know that they needed to pay the young people by a certain time and date. And I put a whole template of that entire email on my blog by a certain date. And what the result was, I think, was probably around $2,000 to $3,000 of impact, because they sent an email out that night paying everyone. So I was able to use my relative privilege that I have now to understand how governance works, to understand how power works, to understand, and I pulled out that charity's financial reports, and they had told me they were grassroots charities. They had received something between $1.5 to $2 million in sponsorship revenue. And so I was like, you're not grassroots. That's not grassroots. They had the Prime Minister speaking at their conference. That's when I'm like, you're not grassroots, and their whole board was predominantly male over 40. And I was like, and the ironic thing was this whole summit was about youth unemployment, and they didn't want to pay the young people on the panel. So look, I don't blame them. I don't hold it against them. They ended up paying everyone, so I'm happy they took an action. I think could have paid them more, but they did pay them. And that was the result. I was acting out of a place of, I guess, for me, love for the young people, not just. At first, I'm always angry. I'm like, oh, why are you doing this? And then I'm like, okay, well, how? And I act out of love instead, because it'll get a better outcome. And how can I shoot the best of the person who's making this mistake rather than start yelling at them? It's not going to get an outcome.
I guess this is what I love about you. You feel so passionately about helping these young lives that people don't have to ask you, like you weren't getting anything from it. Like they weren't going to pay you half their income so you could go fight their battle. You just felt that was the right thing to do because you feel so passionately about helping.
I feel like I was once in that position where people just asked me to speak at events all the time, and I did a lot. I did so many for free. And at one stage I was like, hang on. You're like the wealthiest private school in Melbourne. I went to a public school that was not deemed that great at the time. It's better now, but and I've never been able to afford private education. And yet you want me to come and speak to your private school kids who pay $25,000 to $30,000 a year to go here for free, and then I started to be like, oh, I should charge a small fee for this, So, but it took me to realize that myself. I wish someone else had told me I'm worth more earlier.
Oh, awesome. Well, Daizy, I just want to thank you so much for being here. And I know it's past midnight, I think, in Australia right now.
Yeah, 12 or 6 now.
So I'm deeply grateful that you could make time to make this happen. And I wish you all the success. And because you're impacting so many lives, it's not just you. I know, but I wish you success because I know you're going to help so many others as well. So kudos to you for what you're doing, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Amber, and I'm sure we're going to remain in touch. And like I said to everyone, reach out. I love connecting, and if you've done the task, extra points. So thanks, Amber. All right, bye.
Bye, Daizy.